Hello and welcome to Lords of the Sith. Today we'll be doing something a little bit different. Today we are going to be discussing our favourite books that Reylos can read in this wonderful, wonderful worldwide lockdown, especially if we're still hurting from the monstrosity that was Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. My name's Mary and I'm here with Denise.
Hello everybody. I think this is really cool to do because so many of these books are written by women and we keep talking how we need more women in show business and in Hollywood. But maybe if we start paying attention to the stories that these women are already doing, I think that's a great start.
Absolutely, I agree. And as a writer and big reader, Denise, what is the first book you would recommend?
I'm going to start! I thought you were going to start! Okay, I'm going to start a book that's independent and small, and it's by Bec McMaster. It's called Promise of Darkness. And it's a book that it's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast, and I just really love the writing, and I really love the story and the way it was done. I thought it was very positive and romantic. But I'm gonna give a kind of a warning. The writer is a writer. She writes romance. I don't usually read romance. So I tried her other books and I didn't really like them. And I noticed that her fans didn't really like this book because it's more like fantasy. There is romance, but it's more fantasy. And there is a little bit of steamy scenes, but it's not too much. I think it was okay.
Well, steamy scenes are a good thing for me if they're well written. So, what is it actually about? You've been telling me to read this for ages, and I did actually have a look for it when I was browsing the Waterstones site, but sadly I couldn't see it, but I do eventually want to read it.
Basically, it's this girl, and she has her sister that's her mother's favorite, and her mother seems really bad, and there's this enemy kingdom, and she's sent to be married to this enemy guy, and she's terrified, and her mother and her sister's like, yeah, whatever, go have fun, they don't even feel anything. And then the guy puts her in this castle away from everybody, and she doesn't understand what's happening, and she tries to find clues, understand what is happening, because there is something fishy going on, and it's about her understanding what's happening. Otherwise I'm gonna give spoilers. Yeah, so it's cool.
Well, sounds riveting. I'm definitely going to read it, in the future when I go on my next book shopping spree, because my to read pile, oh my goodness, I'm looking at it right now. It's I've got like 10 books to read and get through, but I recommend this to everyone. I usually recommend, the Folk of the Air by Holly Black series to everyone. You know how much I love that series. But as you all know, if you watch our podcast, we have already done a big episode on it. So please go and read the series if you haven't already, and please go and check that episode out. So the first book that I would actually recommend is I've just actually finished reading it. It's called Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. Now you've read this one, haven't you, Denise?
Yes, I really enjoyed it. There are a few things that I don't like so much, but overall I really enjoyed it. What did you like in it?
Oh my goodness. Well, firstly, I really liked her writing. There's romance, even though the romance is a little bit in the background, and there's a lot. It was kind of more like a fantasy thriller, which I really enjoyed, and I'm guessing most of us here are enemies to lovers, fans, we like those kind of stories. This is a real enemies to lovers story. It's heavily influenced on Russian history with, I can never pronounce the country's name. I think it's Shire, the name of the country in the book. Anyway, their monarchy has been overthrown and the country has sort of turned into a totalitarian state, and the main heroine, Yanila, I think her name is. I'm so sorry, I'm going to be butchering these names, but she's basically poisoned by Valak and forced to become the new commander of State's food taster. Because he has a load of enemies, so they always make sure that nobody's poisoned his food. But in true enemies to lovers fashion, they begin to get feelings for each other. But of course they're torn between that and their loyalties. But it's not just that. There's a whole mystery to unravel. I don't want to give anything more away, but basically there's an assassin or some assassins on the loose. It's all kind of like weaved in together with and it's so complicated, but it's so good. And I actually found it, I'm making it sound complex, but it's actually a very easy read, and it's so good. That is one of the books I recommend.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'll just give a warning. There are some trigger warning, scenes that are a little graphic, but not so much. But for people who don't like it, I don't recommend it. I thought they were unnecessary, and I saw this book recommended by somebody who said it was similar to Throne of Glass, in the sense that you have this woman being brought in chains and having to do a duty to somebody else. I don't think it's similar otherwise, but there is that similarity there, and I enjoyed it. So I think it's a fun read.
Definitely. I think it's a little bit more adult than Throne of Glass, but I would definitely recommend it, because there's like I said, I love the way the author writes, and she weaves character development in with many different dramas and tropes, so it's really good. What's next for you, Denise?
Ooh, I have to choose the next one. I don't know. Let me see. I forgot what I was gonna recommend. You recommend one.
Okay.
Seriously.
So
recommend one. I don't remember what I was gonna recommend.
Awakens.
Oh yeah, there's that as well. But I was gonna leave to the end. I was gonna recommend some independent books, although Bec McMaster is independent. I'm here waving the flag for the indie writers. But it's Awakens. It's by Elise, Kova, and it's a series. It has 5 books. And I think one reason people might like is that there's the heroine and her love interest. He becomes love interest, kind of he's not really in the beginning. They have a bond. But this was way before the sequel trilogy, so it was not copied from that. And there's a little bit similar to Avatar: The Last Airbenders, in the sense that you have people with talents related to the 4 elements. And she's it's not Airbender, there's a different name. So it's really cool. It's a fun series. I sometimes find that the protagonist is a little bit whiny. If you hate whiny protagonists, you have to think about it. But I think it's a fun read.
What you just said about it being similar to Avatar: The Last Airbender, without giving away spoilers, but I'm gonna have to ask the ultimate question: would Zutara fans want to read this book?
Yes, absolutely yes. The only thing that I think is that the love interest, he's 24 or something, and I think he acts so mature. I don't know, I don't even know any guy that's mature like that. Which is which I guess it would be different in the sense that, for example, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Zuko is a kid, right? Kid, kind of, you see this struggling like this, which is kind of quite compelling for him as a character. And here what we get is a very mature love interest, which is I think he behaves I was gonna say he behaves like a 3rd-year-old, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. He's very, very mature. So it's more there's this thing teacher, student, maybe kind of Phantom of the Opera, in the sense that the love interest is this man, which is something that I don't love so much. I prefer, when I'm reading YA, I actually prefer the guy to be a little more unresolved and more like a kid, in the sense that they're kids, but this is not the case here. But it's a really lovely series.
I really want to read it now that you've with the way you've described it. I mean, I have seen it recommended, and when people have asked for enemies to lovers fictions, and this has come up, so I'm definitely gonna put this on my to read list. And Avatar, not so much. Yes, big confession, I've never watched Avatar.
Avatar is awesome. You have to watch it.
Maybe one day. So my next recommendation is actually Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, who is actually one of my favourite authors. So this is a kind of like a Rumpelstiltskin retelling in like a fantasy-inspired Eastern Europe. It focuses mostly on the three heroines, which is Miriam, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Wanda, and Irina. The romances aren't really focused on them. Has sort of like a background romance with the Winter King, as she's so good with like money and keeping money after her father has sort of like squandered the family fortune a little bit, and she's sort of like resolved to like turn it around, and because of that her fortunes have risen. And she sort of like boasts, or I can't remember if it's her or if it's someone else, but someone boasts that she can turn silver into gold, and that gets the attention of the Winter King. Oops! So this is where the Rumpelstiltskin, thing comes in. She has to turn gold, silver into gold for him. But of course, if you like Reylo, there's gonna be a big thing here, and there's also like another kind of like romance in the book, which I kind of liked a bit more, and that's with Irina and the prince that her father arranges her to marry. I'm not going to say anything else because it'll be giving away spoilers, but oh my god, I was so like, whenever those two characters came on, I was like so hooked with their relationship, because it is kind of like enemies to lovers. Because
I read it and I thought it was so. I read this book and I liked it, and I thought that with Irina it was so creepy and scary, and it's like fairy tale scary. I don't know how to say that sense of wonder, of weird magic and scary, like terrifying at the same time. I loved it. My main complaint about this book would be that we should focus more on Irina. But I liked the one with Miriam, isn't it Miriam? I don't know. And I think it has a really cool theme that you have to value yourself. Stand up for what you're worth. And that's pretty great.
Yeah, I liked it. And I kind of, like, I agree with you. I kind of wish, a little bit of a spoiler here. I didn't think the storyline with Irina and the prince it wasn't resolved in a satisfying way. What I mean by that is it was kind of like dropped a little bit in the conclusion, which I didn't like. I wanted to know more about them and their ending. But other than that, I love it. Her Naomi Novik's writing is just, you just get sucked in just like that. And what I also really love about it is there is, women who develop friendships and plan together and disagree. I think we can all agree that one of our biggest disappointments from The Rise of Skywalker was that Rey and Rose never got to interact and kick ass together. And I think they had one scene together, but it was cut because we all saw that image of them in the Resistance base at Star Wars Celebration. Mm-hmm. But of course, it was never in the film. And this has the three main women interact, and it's so great. Wanda and Miriam develop a really good friendship, and even the scenes with Irina are really good too. And they don't necessarily like each other or agree, but it was just really, really so good to see Novak create these real female friendships and alliances. So that is one I definitely recommend, and I'm really glad you liked it as well, Denise.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. With like I said, I didn't enjoy everything about it, but I love the creepy fairy tale setting. It's like, oh my god, this is a creepy fairy tale, and it's cool when it's creepy and weird, and oh my god, it's nice. Mm-hmm. And I know which one I was gonna recommend. Ta-da. It's a book called Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Rodge, and it's really more like Eros and Psyche. She has to one that has, and frankly I hate the idea of arranged marriage. I don't write it. But for some reason I got into that in these books. But she has to go and marry this guy it's a demon, and she has to kill him. she's going to kill him because kind of like to avenge her mother, and she has this plan to kind of destroy. She's been studying, and yeah, of course she's not gonna kill him, right? So, and what I liked about it was weird. It was creepy and weird, and I think I like creepy and weird things. And it was I liked it because it was creepy and weird.
Creepy and weird. Well, I'm going to be honest. I'm a sucker for like arranged marriage tropes. I love them. That's one of the reasons why Irina and the Princess story in Spinning Silver was one of my favorites, and it's also why I love part of the reason I love Landscape with a Blur of Conquerors by Disastrum so much. That's a really good Reylo fan fiction for anyone who's unaware. But yeah, I love that trope, so I'll check that out. Ooh.
I need to read that fan fiction. I said, guys, don't shoot me, but fan fiction, I have a problem with suspension of disbelief. I said I was going to put on Word and replace the names and like pretend like they're original characters and try to read it. I like it when fanfic authors release their works like as themselves, and then I don't know, for some reason I'm like that, but I need to read that for sure. But in general, I don't like this trope, arranged marriage, for some reason. But somehow I got in Cruel Beauty, and I thought it was more like, because Eros and Psyche is an arranged marriage, right? The idea that she has to marry this monster, and it's been present in stories and in fables in all cultures. It's something about it reflects like a natural fear we have, right? And even if you were thinking about like ages a long time ago, like if you have like a teenager, you're gonna have to get married, and the guy for her is a monster, right? So it's like real fears, human fears. I think
that's why we're drawn to fairy tales as well,
and that's why you shouldn't say, oh, but this is abusive or this is bad, because it's more about these archetypes and these fears, right? And these monsters are sometimes things that we fear in terms of relationship. I also think that sometimes when you have like a woman with a man that's gonna be redeemed, sometimes it's not necessarily something external, but something like internal, like two parts of herself, or sometimes you're healing your part that's bad. So I think it's so symbolic, and you shouldn't interpret it literally when you have something that's a little bit not so great. Although I think Cruel Beauty is fine. He's fine. The books that we're recommending here, I guess, everybody's really fine.
And of course, character development. You can't be a good character development in stories like this as well. But with that being said, I recommend Uprooted, again by Naomi Novak. As I said, she's one of my favorite authors. If Spinning Silver is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, then this is the Beauty and the Beast retelling. Basically, a wizard takes a girl from the heroine's village every 10 years for reasons unknown. And of course, our heroine, whose name I cannot pronounce to save my life, Agnesika, that's how I'm going to pronounce it. I'm so sorry, guys. But anyway, Agnesika gets chosen. Why? Well, you're going to have to find out, because we don't want to give the whole story away. But I will say that, again, Naomi Novak's writing is so good. You get, it's just bang, you just get sucked in straight away. And there's so much angsty tension between Agnieszka and Sarkhan the Wizard. And it's so delicious to, read. And it should come as no surprise that I've got a whole cast planned for a movie adaptation, and of course I totally imagine Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver as them. I can't help it.
But aren't they like younger in the book? That's what I think.
Agnesha is. She's about 17. The Sarkhan isn't. Definitely not. I would actually say he appears to be in his 30s. But that's just my interpretation of it. But
yeah, you can, since it's your imagination, you can imagine it when they were young, right? Like young, I don't know, I guess.
I'd still 100% cast Daisy Ridley as her. Like I said, I've got my whole all my cast in my head. They are actually planning a movie adaptation for actually. Ellen is producing it,
cool.
so I am excited.
Okay,
and also,
can I just ask a question? I'm looking at
go ahead.
I'm looking at it on Goodreads, and there are lots and lots of very negative reviews that people say, ooh, underwhelming. Why is that? Can you tell me? I'm not saying it's normal. Some people sometimes don't like some books, but what are the reasons people don't like it, you think?
Okay, I've not read any reviews on Goodreads, but I did find it overwhelming in the third of the book. Spoiler alert, in case you don't want to hear this. But we'll put a timer on the video so you can skip this. But basically, in the third of the book, Agnieszka has to travel from the tower to the king's court, and she doesn't go with Sarkin. There's like a whole section where Sarkin isn't in the story, and I really didn't like it because not only was he portrayed as her love interest, he was also portrayed as her mentor, and all of a sudden she gets taken away from that developing romance and teacher/student relationship. She's put in this place without him, and she's given a new mentor in the form of Alosha, I think her name is. Now, Alosha is an awesome character, but for me, I really felt like, what? Why? You had this whole relationship going on, and then you took the heroine away from it and gave her a new mentor. It felt really redundant, which is why I found that big section underwhelming. She just get reunited with him, don't worry, but I found it so underwhelming. And let me just say, if I was making the movie adaptation, I wouldn't exactly cut the character of Ashla out, but I would definitely make Sarkin go down to the court with Agnieszka, because I was just like, it was going along so well. You were getting involved in the relationship, and just when things started to get going, you take us to some completely new place without one half of that relationship. No, I didn't think that worked personally, but that's the only big problem I have with the book.
Okay, yeah, it's funny that usually the negative reviews come on top, but I'm gonna say that I find that I learned more about books based on the negative reviews than on the positive reviews. And also a way that I found to find good books is to go to a really popular book that everybody likes and that I can't stand. I'm not gonna name names. I cannot. I'm not allowed to do that. And then you go to the 1-star reviews, and then you check which books that person liked. Because usually what's gonna happen is that the person's gonna have the same pet peeves as you have. Because if there's a book that everybody likes, usually the book is good. Okay, if you don't like it, it's your problem. But then you find somebody who has the same problem. Ta-da. So I think that's it. Yeah, but I don't know. I might try it. I wasn't in love with Spinning Silver, and yeah.
What would you recommend? Oh, one thing I didn't forgot to mention is, again, there's in Uprooted, there's a lovely female friendship between Agnieszka and her best friend Kaiser. I think hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Again, like Spinning Silver, it was wonderful to see this real genuine friendship between the two girls. So much so that Agnieszka goes and actually rescues Kaiser from something really bad at one point, and Kaiser does the same. And they're there to support each other emotionally as well. It was wonderful to read.
Oh, okay. No, that's cool. All right.
What's next on your list, Denise?
I think we're going to mention Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Thorns and Roses, briefly. I know that a lot of people like it. I like it. I think it's entertainment. It's entertaining, and I think if people like that, there's an independent author that you can read. It's called C.N. Crawford, and she has quite a few series that are fake. There's This Enemy to Lovers. There's Well, with Sarah J. Maas, usually the heroine is always all the time thinking about doing it, which I find a little weird, to be honest. But in these books, it's also the case. But maybe you like it. And there's a trilogy that's the Sea Fae book one, and they're fun. They're fun books. And for people who like Sarah J. Maas, I think it's a good call. It's a good call.
Yeah, I have not read the Throne of Glass series yet, but I have read most of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I did like it. I thought so basically what I like about Sarah J. Maas is she focuses more on character than on story. Like the whole of the first book is about Furey, I think how you pronounce her name, and basically she's sort of like tricked into leaving behind her family and coming to live with the Lord of the Spring Court, Tamlin, and it's sort of like their relationship sort of develops there, but it turns out him and his people have been put under a curse by Arithmanta, I think, who's the main villainess of the book, and it's sweet. It's interesting to see the relationships develop. And also, there's another character by the name of Rysand who also develops an interest in Furey. And if you think, you're probably thinking, oh, is this going to become like a kind of like Twilight sort of love triangle? It sort of does become a love triangle in a way, but it's totally not Twilight. It goes in directions that you just completely do not expect. And it even reminded me of Reylo a little bit in a way, because Furey and one of the characters has a bond that is, sort of that mental psychic link that's similar to Rey and Kylo.
Yeah.
So
the idea of bond is a very old trope, right? A romantic trope. So it's normal that we're gonna see in these books, and why when we see it, we say, "Oh, there's something there," right?
Yeah, and you might be thinking, oh, is it similar to The Cruel Prince because, there's high fae in it? Trust me, it is not similar to the Folk of the Air.
At all,
At all, no.
Yeah, I was talking to Mary just before that usually people who like Holy Black don't like Sarah J. Maas, and people who like Sarah J. Maas don't like Holy Black, or else you love one and kind of mad about the other, because they're so very different. I think Holy Black is a little bit more plot, the characters are younger, they're more innocent. With Sarah J. Maas, it's new adult. There's a lot of how do you say, describe the intimacy, right? They describe body parts and what the body parts are doing, which, some people like it.
But there's also a lot more character. I mean, Holly Black is really good at character development as well, but with Sarah J. Maas, I think there's a lot more character development than plot development. Yeah. So that's what makes it like both of them really different worlds.
Yeah, very, very different. I agree with you. It's wildly different. So, and it's different tastes, which is great that there are books for different readers.
Yeah, I do think it's a Court of Thorns and Roses is a little bit cheesy at times, because there's this whole thing with high fae where they call their loved ones their mate. And it just became a little bit too cringy from the second book onwards. It's just like, oh my god, stop, please. That's my biggest issue with this series.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
If you love cheesiness, then you're gonna love this. Trust me.
Yeah, cheesy sometimes is good, and I know some people who love these books. So there is something there to love for sure.
Absolutely, and if you like this and you want us to dive a little bit more into A Court of Thorns and Roses, because it is very popular, then just let us know in the comments, please.
Yeah, and if you want more book recommendations, we're reading a lot, so I guess we can come back and do more of this.
Definitely, I have one more, which is it's a little recommendation. It's called Neon Rising by Keary Taylor, and the author came out, full on admitted that it is definitely inspired by Reylo, and you can definitely see that on the cover as well. I've read it is a small book. I've only just read the first one, but I really liked it. It was like, it's just a fun, one of those, like fun fantasy sci-fi adventures. And I can definitely see the similarities between Rey and Kylo, but it is different as well. For example, that trope about the bond that we were just talking about, they have that at the start of the story. But basically, the main girl, Nova, is a smuggler of this mineral, and the bad guy is basically the First Order, Corpillion. They basically take over any planets that have this mineral, and she obviously doesn't want them finding out. But of course, the guy that who she has this mental bond with is part of Corpillion, and that's what makes it interesting. Mm-hmm. So I do recommend it.
I'm gonna give it a try. Yeah, I love those covers. They're so beautiful. Yeah.
They are beautiful. Anything else you want to recommend, Denise?
That's it for today.
All right, guys. Well, we hope you really enjoyed, and please go out and read some of these books. And if you enjoyed them, or you have read them, or if you have recommendations of your own, please leave them in the comments. In the comments. We really want to hear what you think and what you like. If you liked this episode, you can subscribe. It helps us a lot, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and iTunes and SoundCloud. Until next time, and may the force